Hello, dear students. Welcome to this lecture on romantic novelists. Now, the romantic age is a very interesting age when we look at it from the perspective of poetry. Normally, when we talk about romantic age, we talk about romantic poetry, but seldom do we talk about the romantic novels. They have their own rich heritage, they have their own rich background and backdrop. And the Romantic Age is a very significant era in genre of prose because the Romantic Age holds some of the best writers of all times in the genre of not only poetry but also the romantic prose, especially the novel. All right. Now, uh, give me 1 second. I'll just uh, try to share the screen and then we shall begin. I'm finding some. Found it. Here it is. So, here is, I'm sorry for all this nonsense that is coming up. I don't know how to uh, get it out of the view. However, let us focus on the slides themselves. Okay, now this lecture is about the major English novelists of the Romantic period, where we shall deal with their lives, their works, their themes, and their contributions in the history of English literature. Okay, now first let me introduce you to the Romantic age. Now, the Romantic period comes at a very crucial juncture, especially because this era holds a very special place in the history of English literature from thematic as well as structural perspective. Now, the Romantic age followed the 18th century, that is the Augustan age or the Neoclassical age, and the Romantic age had its significant implications. Whenever you study the history of English literature, always notice that each age has three trends which the age normally follows. The first trend is that the age would either be a continuation of its previous age, that is, the age's themes, issues, concerns, etc., will follow the themes, issues, and concerns of the previous age, or else the age will be a refutation of its previous age. So, either its continuation or its refutation, or it will be a simultaneous continuation, refutation of both. Now, this is, I find this to be a very fruitful way of studying the Romantic age or any age for that matter, because this gives you an idea of how to locate the age in a continuum. Now, the Romantic age is essentially a refutation of its previous age, that is the 18th century or the neoclassical age. Why? Because you see, uh, the Romantic age, which was spanning somewhere between the uh, late 18th century around the French Revolution to the early 19th century, say till the 1820s and so on and so forth. And therefore, it was historically very interesting, politically very interesting, and otherwise as well. But I am not going into the background. I am directly delving into the romantic novelists. So, the first novelist that we'll be talking about is Jane Austen. Now, Jane Austen is primarily revered for her masterpiece, which is Pride and Prejudice. Now, I really need not tell you how many film adaptations have been made out of the novel itself. Pride and Prejudice has been there. Then many other films have also been influenced by this text, and this has become a cult text, sort of. But Austen's novels are very interesting because of their exploration of human relationships, social structures, and individual growth. Now, this is very interesting because she was writing the novel when even the novel, the romantic novel or the personal novel, had not developed that much. The earlier novels of 18th century were very, very different from the novels, the type of novels, the kind of novels that Jane Austen was writing. Now, in this slide, I have given a list of her major works. You can look at them. Sense and Sensibility came in 1811, Pride and Prejudice in 1813, Mansfield Park in 1814, Emma in 1815, Northanger Abbey and Persuasion both came in 1817 posthumously. Now, this slide deals with a little summary of the individual novels. So, Sense and Sensibility deals with the lives of the Dashwood sisters, Eleanor and Marianne, as they navigate through love, heartbreak, and social expectations. And Eleanor represents sense, that is reason and restraint, whereas Marianne embodies the sensibility, which is emotion and spontaneity. Now, I I know this little summary is not enough, but from your history of English literature perspective, then you will have to be brief. Now, Pride and Prejudice deals with the exploits of Elizabeth and Darcy as they go through Pride and Prejudice. They navigate through the issues of marriage, morality, misconceptions, societal pressures, class expectations, etc. And how Elizabeth lets go of her prejudice about Mr. Darcy, and Mr. Darcy go of his pride, and how Elizabeth lets go of her pride about assuming that Darcy is a pompous prig, and how Darcy leaves his prejudice behind that Elizabeth, who does not pertain to the social upper class, is marriage worthy. So it's a negotiation between two people who are trying to uh, do away with both their prides and prejudices. Now, Mansfield Park chronicles the life of Fanny Price. She is sent to live with her wealthy relatives at Mansfield Park, and the novel explores how her moral integrity and love for her cousin Edmund uh, blooms amid the backdrop of family dynamics and societal pressures. Now, Emma, on the other hand, follows the story of Emma Woodhouse, a confident and somewhat spoiled young woman who enjoys matchmaking. Her misguided attempts to arrange marriages for her friends lead to various hilarious and romantic misunderstandings. Bollywood tried to emulate this uh, timeless classic through the movie Aisha, where Sonam Kapoor was there, perhaps. That was a massive blunder, but in any case, at least they tried. Now, Northanger Abbey is the story of Catherine Morland, who is coming of age. She's a young girl with a vivid imagination, which is influenced by Gothic novels. What are Gothic novels? We'll be dealing with that. Because Gothic novel is a very distinct romantic tradition which goes side by side with the traditional romantic novels. So, Catherine's visit to Northanger Abbey leads to humorous and enlightening experiences, and she learns to distinguish between fiction and reality. Finally, Persuasion tells the story of Anne Elliot, who reconnects with Captain Frederick Wentworth, a former fiance she was persuaded to reject years earlier, and themes of second chances, enduring love, the impact of persuasion are central to the novel. as the title suggests. Now, Austen's titles are very, very significant, you see. Let's look at the themes that she explores through each and every novel. So, I have given a list of themes that Austen explores throughout the novels, like Sense and Sensibility. It's the tussle between reason and emotion. It is the tussle between social class and economic security. It is the tussle between marriage and romantic relationships. In Pride and Prejudice, again the issue of social class and mobility comes up. Marriage and morality come up. Pride, prejudice, and personal growth of accepting that people would have pride and prejudice, and it is normal to have pride and prejudice and grow from there. This is the kind of message that Pride and Prejudice sends. Mansfield Park, on the other hand, deals with moral integrity and virtue, social hierarchy and family, love and duty. And Emma deals with the self discovery and personal growth. How Emma finds out that her uh, gameplay of matchmaking isn't doing really good. The complexities of social relationships comes in. The pitfalls of matchmaking becomes a major issue in this novel. In Northangarabi, the influence of literature on perception, the journey from naivety to maturity, and the satire of Gothic fiction. That is how Gothic fiction represents life as bleak, sardonical, almost painted in like charcoal. Persuasion, on the other hand, deals with regret and redemption, the enduring power of love, and social mobility and change. All right. Now, if you understand the novels, if you locate these themes within the summaries that I have already given you, you'll see that you will not have to memorize them and they will follow one another. Now, what are the special features of Jane Austen's writing? Look, Austen was a pioneer of realistic social commentary. That is, she probes into the social and domestic lives of the British gentry, the landed gentry primarily, of the early 19th century. And her focus is on the everyday lives and relationships of her character, which set the stage for later realistic fiction. That is, Austen was dealing with life in the context of society. And her novels were very, very different because of the multiplicity of characterization, the plethora of characters that appear here is mesmerizing. The second issue is that her female protagonists are very, very strong and they exist in their own rights. That is, their intelligence, wit, and moral integrity, their uh, capability to challenge the societal expectations and norms and seek personal happiness against the societal odds becomes very interesting. Now, a narrative technique. She uses free indirect speech, she uses free indirect discourse, she uses third person narrator, and the narrator adapts depending on the tone, mood, and tenor of the character. So imagine if Elizabeth is speaking, the tone, mood, and tenor becomes different. When Darcy is speaking, the tone, mood, and tenor become different. When Emma is speaking, the tone, mood, and tenor becomes different. When some other character is speaking, the tone, mood, and tenor become different. Now, this adds to the psychological depth of the characters and creates a deeper insight for the readers into the characters' thoughts and feelings. Now, this psychological depth was lacking in the contemporary fiction. This psychological depth was lacking mostly in earlier fiction. Yes, there have been exceptions, like Tristram Shandy by Lawrence Stern is an exception, but exceptions generally tend to prove the rule. Now, Austen has a very sardonic satire and very sparkling wit. Like if you read the very first sentence of Pride and Prejudice, it is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a large fortune must be in search of a wife. Now, what this tells you is how society looks at a man like a cash cow. So, she has a very sharp and satirical approach towards the social manners and customs, the social manners and mannerisms, which influence every movement that we make. And she delivers it not in a very crude way, but with the utmost elegance of her prose and her literally sharpened wit. Now, look, she has therefore, no doubt, she still has an enduring popularity because what happens is that her works are conducive to the changing situation where women have to go through all this societal drama and jargon and nonsense. So, wherever women have to go through these things, or men have to accept such powerful women, let me say this as well. The problem with the present day society, I feel, is that in some cases and in some places, is that now we have powerful women in many cases and in many places, but we really do not have men powerful enough to deal with those powerful women. So, weak men often fall prey to such powerful women. That has become the sad, sorry state of humanity right now. So, next we move on to the second novelist of our concern, is who is Sir Walter Scott. Sir Walter Scott is famous for his novel Ivanhoe, famous for his Waverley series, and he was a person who freely blended history and fiction. And you see, his narratives, his innovations in historical fiction is really splendid. I remember when I was a child, I used to kind of gorge on Sir Walter Scott. I loved Sir Walter Scott. Now, here's a series of his novels: Waverley, 1814, Guy Mannering, 1815, The Antiquary, 1816, Rob Roy, 1817, The Heart of Midlothian, 1818, Ivanhoe, 1819, Kenilworth, 1821, The Pirate, 1822, The Fortunes of Nigel, 1822, Quentin Durward, 1823, and The Talisman, 1825. Now, Sir Walter Scott's major works, let us go through a summary. If we have done it for Austen, why not for Scott as well? Waverley deals with the exploits of Edward Waverley, who is an English soldier and who becomes entangled in the Jacobite uprising of 1745. The novel explores his divided loyalties and romantic entanglements. In France, there were two parties. Like in England, you have the Whigs and Tories. Like in India, you have the India Joint Front and the BJP. Similarly, in French Revolution France, you had the Girondists and the Jacobins. And Sir Edward Waverley falls prey to the Jacobin party and the Jacobite uprising of 1745. Guy Mannering deals with an astrologer of the same name who helps the Bertram family during a crisis, and the story unfolds with a lot of family secrets, a lost heir, and a struggle for the family estate. You will see that this novel has become a trope for many, many Bollywood movies. I can remember two or three movies by Amitabh Bachchan. I can remember one movie, I don't remember the name. It was by Ajay Devgan, Rishi Kapoor was there. This similar trope has been used in many, many Bollywood movies. So, this is a very time tried and time tested formula for a good story. Now, the antiquary follows the adventures of Lovell, who is a young man with a mysterious past, and his interactions with Jonathan Oldbuck, the antiquary. And the novel delves into Scottish history and folklore. Now, Rob Roy is a very interesting novel. It again is set during the uprising of the Jacobite Party of 1715. This would be 1745, I think, or 1715. I've forgotten. Please check this detail. It is either 1745 or 1715. Now it narrates the adventures of Frank Osbaldistone, who encounters the outlaw Robert MacGregor while trying to reclaim his family's fortune. The Heart of Midlothian focuses on Jeannie Deans, who undertakes a perilous journey to London to seek a royal pardon for her sister Effie, who is wrongfully accused of infanticide. And the novel explores themes of justice and familial loyalty. Now, look as early as the 1900s, that is when was the Heart of Midlothian published? Heart of Midlothian, 1818. Back then, Walter Scott is dealing with infanticide, etc., such issues. Ivanhoe is a historical romance which is set in the 12th century England, featuring the disinherited knight Ivanhoe returns from the crusade to reclaim his inheritance and help restore King Richard the First to the throne. This is a historical novel. When we were students, Ivanhoe was there in the syllabus. Kenilworth was there in the syllabus. Extremely sorry. Kenilworth dramatizes the tragic love story of Amy Robsart, the secret wife of Robert Dudley, the Earl of Leicester, against the backdrop of the court of Queen Elizabeth I. So, this is a very interesting Elizabethan uh, romance novel, you might say. The Pirate deals with a mysterious pirate captain called Cleveland, and it is set in the Orkney Islands, and it kind of deals with the intertwined fates of the Metoon and Troyle families. The Fortunes of Nigel deals with the actually fortune of Nigel Oliphant, a young Scottish nobleman in the 17th century London, navigating through the court intrigues and financial troubles. Quentin Durward is set in 15th century France, and it tells the story of Quentin Durward, a young Scottish adventurer who enters the service of King Louis the XI and becomes involved in the royal intrigues. And finally, the Talisman deals with a tale set in the Third Crusade, focusing on Sir Kenneth of the Couchon and his quest to support King Richard the Lionheart, encountering various adventures and conflicts. So now let's deal with themes. Now, just like what we dealt with, how we dealt with Austen, I have also made similar slides for Sir Walter Scott, individual work and themes, so that you can link it up with the summary itself. So Waverley deals with loyalty and betrayal, national identity and political conflict, romanticism and adventure. Guy Mannering deals with fate and prophecy, family and inheritance, the clash of cultures. The Antiquary deals with the value of history and tradition, mysteries of the past, social class and relationships. Rob Roy deals with heroism and outlawry, justice and retribution, national and personal honor. The Heart of Midlothian deals with justice and moral integrity, sacrifice and redemption, social and legal criticism. Ivanhoe deals with the issues of chivalry and knighthood, national unity and cultural conflict, love and honor. I'm extremely sorry I missed a U. Kenilworth deals with the issues of power and ambition, courtly love and tragedy, historical accuracy versus fiction. The Pirate deals with redemption and identity, nature versus civilization, love and adventure. The Fortunes of Nigel deals with ambition and downfall, social mobility, and political intrigue. Finally, the last two, Quentin Durward deals with loyalty and chivalry, political machinations, adventure and romance. The Talisman deals with faith and valor, conflict and reconciliation, heroism in a foreign land. All of Sir Walter Scott's novels deal with history in some form, where Scott freely mixes fact with fiction. There is a sense of adventure and romance. There is a sense of heroism. There is a sense of loyalty and chivalry. There are political machinations. There are the individuals striving against the social system. So, what happened was that let's deal with the special features of Walter Scott. He pioneered the historical novel. Now, present day historical novels retell the history, Walter Scott retold the history. Now, look, there are two kinds of novels. First, let me deal with this. Right now, when we talk about a historical novel, there are two types. One is the historical novel which follows history, the lines of history, and how that history functions. The novel follows that. Number two is the novel based on history, where the novel takes some uh, break, some liberty in the interpretation of history, some liberty from the history as well. So, fact and fiction is mixed. Walter Scott wrote the historical novel, all right, but his novels were mostly of the second kind rather than the first kind. But he was so very true in his depiction that sometimes his novels kind of hang in the balance between the two genres, a historical novel and a novel based on history, because he blends fiction with historical events and brings out such characters that they bring the history alive to the reader. Now, since Sir Walter Scott was primarily Scottish, he brought back the Scottish history, the folklore, the dialect to a wide audience, and consequently, there was a greater appreciation for Scotland's culture and heritage. Now, Walter Scott has had a huge impact on later novelists because of his narrative technique. His narrative technique includes the use of detailed historical settings, complex plots, and it influenced countless authors of later date, including Dickens, Tolstoy, Victor Hugo, and others. One second. So, he also created many iconic characters like Ivanhoe, Rob Roy, and other figures of the Waverley novels. Uh, his literary innovation of the mixing of romance, adventure, and historical realism created a new type of narrative fiction. And finally, his enduring legacy. Most of his novels have been made into films, documentaries, television series, plays, etc. So you see, he had a great impact on later culture. Now we come to Gothic novel. The Gothic novel blends horror, romance, supernatural, and has a rich and fascinating history, and it emerged side by side with the romantic novel and quickly gained popularity. Who does not like to hear a ghost story where there is an old castle, maybe Dracula coming out, maybe some ghost trying to pester you, maybe the squeaking of a door? Who doesn't like these tropes? So, Gothic novel automatically became very, very famous very, very quickly. Now, the Gothic novel originated in England in the latter half of 18th century during a period when the Enlightenment movement was emphasizing on reason and rationality, and the Enlightenment was slowly beginning to wane. And soon there was a renewed interest in emotion, imagination, and the sublime. And this shift, while it made the surge of Romanticism possible, it gave birth to the Romantic movement as we know it, because it created an accentuated sense of individualism. It created a celebration of nature. Man realized that nature is made by God, therefore it is superior to culture which is made by man. And the emotional experience, man was no longer afraid of talking about his emotions. When Alexander Pope is writing his essay on man, he is saying, "Know thyself and presume not God to scan. The proper study of mankind is man." But sadly, Pope, with all of his wit and genius, could not understand what is going on in man's mind. It was the Romantics who first probed deeper into the human psyche, the human consciousness, and brought out what a man is thinking and feeling. Now, the Gothic novel spread its wings with the publication of Horace Walpole's The Castle of Otranto, which was a novel which was published in 1764, and it was subtitled A Gothic Story. Now it introduced the key elements of the genre, such as the haunted castle, mysterious events, a focus on terror and suspense, and Walpole's blending of medieval romance and supernatural elements with contemporary narrative techniques created the stage for later Gothic writers. So, what are the features of Gothic novels? The atmospheric settings are very interesting. That is, the novels are often set in gloomy, decaying castles, haunted mansions, or remote wild landscapes. And there's a sense of eerie mystery, isolation, foreboding, and the general atmosphere of terror. The supernatural elements are there, like ghost monsters, other supernatural occurrences. They are very common and they evoke fear and suspense. And there is a psychological complexity because these novels often deal with illusion, delusion, and hallucination, and they cash in on these three features of the human being. Now, there are themes of terror and horror. Now, look, terror is something which is associated with suspense and the anticipation of dread, whereas horror involves the confrontation with something which is terrifying and even grotesque. And this grotesque becomes very interesting because it deals with the romantic and emotional intensity of the times, because the intense romantic relationships, unfulfilled desires, how gruesome and grotesque they can become. They are dramatized in these novels. And finally, this is a moral and social commentary on on the system of the times, on the issues of transgression, taboo, social anxieties, etc. Now, the first author that we would be looking at is Mary Shelley. She is famous for Frankenstein, which basically opened up the genre of science fiction. Now, Mary Shelley's major work is Frankenstein or the Modern Prometheus. The rest, you just have to know the names. Really, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is her masterpiece. So, Frankenstein deals with the story of Victor Frankenstein, who is a scientist who creates a sentient creature through an unorthodox scientific experiment. He takes the parts of dead bodies and creates a monster out of it. He wanted to create a human being, but he ends up creating a monster. And the monster wants a partner for itself when it does not get the partner, because Frankenstein is afraid and he hates the monster. So what happens is the monster starts murdering Frankenstein's family. So it deals with the ill effects of the quest for knowledge and suffering. Valpegra is a story about Castruccio Castrasani, set in the 14th century, a nobleman, and his love for the fictional heroine Euthanasia. The Last Man is a dystopian science fiction set in future world ravaged by a plague that gradually wipes out humanity, focusing on the experiences of the feelings of Lionel Verney. And Perkin Warbeck is a historical novel about the life and title of the character, um, who claimed to be Richard of Shrewsbury, Duke of York, one of the princes in the tower, and the political intrigue surrounding his claim. Now, Lodore deals with the life and struggles of Lady Lodore and her daughter Ethel. The narrative addresses the issues faced by women in society and their fight for independence. And Faulkner is a complex relationship between Elizabeth Raby and her guardian, Rupert Faulkner, which explores the theme of redemption, forgiveness, and the power of enduring love. What are the themes? The pursuit of knowledge, its consequence, the isolation and alienation, nature versus nurture, creation versus responsibility. The rest are there in the slide. I am not going into these because these novels are really not that important. If anybody wants, I'll share the slides with them. Just ping in the comment section. So I'm not going into that. Mary Shelley's special features: Frankenstein. It is considered to be the first science fiction novel. It is in epistolary form with multiple narrators, so multiple narrative techniques. It deals with the exploration of Gothic elements and romantic ideals. The rest I am not reading. If anybody wants, here is the slide. You can take a screenshot or you can ask me, I'll send you the slide. No problem. Here is for Loro and Faulkner. What is our contribution? Now, look, Frankenstein is very important because it laid the groundwork for science fiction genre. It introduced the themes of ethical responsibility and scientific experimentation. It influenced numerous adaptations and reimaginations in literature and media, quite like Bram Stoker's Dracula. And her works primarily highlighted the struggles and inner lives of women. Her novels frequently address the political and social issues. Uh, Her use of Gothic and Romantic elements helped to shape these genres in literature, and her exploration of complex psychological and moral themes paved the way for literary developments and character and narrative depth. The second person that I'll be reading is Anne Radcliffe. Anne Radcliffe is primarily noted for the mysteries of Udolpho. She was a very prominent Gothic writer, and she has a very innovative and complex themes. Her major works are The Castles of Atheling and Dunbayne, a Sicilian romance, Romance of the Forest, Mysteries of Udolpho, The Italian, Gaston de Blondeville. You can see the dates. I am not reading out the dates. Now, the summaries: The Castles of Atheling and Dunbayne. It is set in the Scottish Highlands, and the novel centers on the feud between the Atheling and Dunban families. It follows Osbert, the Earl of Atheling, who seeks revenge against Baron Malcolm of Dunbayne for the murder of his father, and the narrative includes the themes of romance, adventure, and family honor. A Sicilian romance deals with obviously Sicily, and revolves around the experiences of the beautiful Julia and her sister Amelia, daughters of Marquis of Mazzini. The novel depicts their struggles against the tyranny of their father and their quest for freedom and true love. The Romance of the Forest, not very important. The Mysteries of Udolpho, it deals with Emily St. Aubert, who, after the death of her parents, is imprisoned in the gloomy castle of Udolpho by the villainous Montoni. And the novel is renowned for its vivid descriptions of the natural landscape, the intricate plot, and the eerie, suspenseful atmosphere. The Italian is set in Italy, and the novel follows the love story of Vivaldi and Elena, who face numerous obstacles, including the machinations of the sinister monk Shedoni. And the narrative is rich in mystery, danger, and supernatural elements, highlighting the themes of love, persecution, and religious fanaticism. Gaston de Blondeville is really not that important. And Radcliffe's themes: revenge and justice, family honor and loyalty, the conflict between tyranny and freedom. On the other hand, look at the romance, a struggle for personal freedom. So you see, freedom is a repeating issue. The oppressive power of patriarchal authority, romantic love and its trials. The Romance of the Forest deals with the supernatural and the unknown, search for identity and belonging, clash between innocence and corruption. Mysteries of Udolpho deals with the sublime and the beautiful, the power of the imagination, fear and supernatural, the conflicts between reason and superstition. The Italian deals with the tension between love and duty, the impact of religious fanaticism, the nature of evil and redemption. And Gaston de Blondeville deals with justice and retribution, the supernatural as a narrative device, and historical context and its influence on the individuals. Now, what are her special features and contributions? So she's considered to be one of the founders of the Gothic novel because she was interestingly, she mixed the genre of Gothic novel with romance, horror, and the supernatural. And this captivated readers for many generations. And there is this mastery of atmosphere with evocative descriptions, detailed landscapes, and setting, which created the backdrop for the suspense and horror that became a hallmark in Gothic literature. And she developed the female Gothic. Okay, this was her signature subgenre because she focused on the female experience and agency, where her young virtuous heroines faced the malevolent forces and oppressive situations, unlike the male predominant Gothic fiction. Now, she had a huge influence on romantic literature because her literature worked as a bridge between the gap of the Enlightenment and Romanticism, and she emphasized the power of imagination and the beauty of nature and the emotions, which were very congruent with Lord Byron, Mary Shelley, and others. And she gave a very thoughtful narrative technique because the way she tried to explain and grapple with the supernatural, where seemingly supernatural events are eventually given rational explanations. And this approach added a layer of psychological complexity, and it helped in the later development of the genre as well. So finally, the Romantic period was marked by an emphasis on emotion, nature, and individualism. And you know that these novelists have already made a very significant impact on the literature of the time. So, thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comment section. If you wish to have this PPT, etc., ping me in the comment section. I'll give you my mail ID. Once you ping there, I will send it. No problem. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Good night.